Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a new build video. This one's for my new custom frame that I got made through Armattan Productions. So I figured we'll go through the parts list first. So for this build, I've decided to use the iFlight Xing 2306 1700 kV economy motors. Going with a blue theme for this build, this blue wiring. I think it's a bit different, might look a bit cool. Partnered with the HQProp V1S. Always flown these props and they go really good, so why not keep going with them. For the camera, I've gone with a bit of a budget alternative for now on this one. So this is the Foxeer Razor camera. So I've got a 2.1mm lens on the front there. Nice big fisheye looking thing. We'll eventually upgrade to a RunCam Phoenix, maybe the JB version. I got a Foxeer Lollipop version 3, right hand polarized, just in black. Haven't tried one of these out, but I just picked a couple up. Heard good things. We'll see how that goes. Got another Rush VTX. This time I decided to go for the mini version. I believe this guy has either 500 or 800 milliwatt output. So looking forward to testing this one out, and it's a 20 by 20 configuration, so that should fit nicely into the frame I've built. Going with Crossfire again. I like to get that little bit further range when I fly, so got the little microscopic nano receiver here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Of course, partnered with the Immortal T antenna. I feel like these work really nice on builds, stay out of the props and such. Gone with a different stack. We're doing a 4-in-1 ESC. So this is the iFlight Succex or Success, not sure how to say it. 45 amp, and I'm going to be running 6S on this guy. So here's the ESC, comes with the XT60 lead and a lot of different connectors. Probably won't be using most of them, but it's nice to have that option. That will be partnered with the flight controller. That nice blue color as well. So I've got the micro USB, lots of different UARTs. Should be pretty fun to build. And we've got plenty of 3D printed bits and bobs as well. So I've made these arm guards up, just printed these out of TPU, pretty flexible. Made a bash plate for the front as well. I'll show how I install this. This is a battery pad that I've printed out of TPU for the moment, but I do plan to laser cut this piece of rubber into this shape as well, and we'll stick that on with the M3 sticky pad on the back there. And just some other 3D printed stuff. This is an RX mount where the Crossfire Nano is going to live, just a little zip tie across, and I've got some press nuts put in there just to keep it nice and clean. And of course, just some mounting hardware, screws, nuts, all sorts of things just for the stack and whatnot. So I'll show you the frame now. So this is my custom frame that I've designed and built. Got this done through Armattan Productions, and I must say I'm super happy with the quality. It is just perfect. So as you can see, it's an inverted build. So what I'll do is flip it upside down, take this bottom plate off and build it from the bottom up. Comes with a camera cage as well in here, so camera can live in there. I've got these wire organizers, so motors will sit on top, but the wires will actually run through underneath and then go to the ESC that way. So thinking about releasing this frame, if people are interested in purchasing it, might build up a website. A friend of mine wants to do it as well, so maybe we'll put a couple up there if you guys are interested. Pretty different design. I might do a build review on this frame as well, so it'll come with 6 arms just in case, because we all know things can happen in FPV. So I've now mounted the flight controller ESC, VTX and RX 3D printed mount to the frame, and I've done this using these soft rubber mounts. So the goal in mind there is to reduce oscillations and hopefully take some of the vibration out of the quad. I've got the XT60 lead sitting where I want it. I've designed a 3D printed mount just to go in here to house this cable, and my idea is that the cable will go this way and the battery, the male cable from the battery will meet it in the middle here, then the battery strap will go over top. So that's what I'm thinking for the moment. So I've got it all marked out and I'm about to start putting that together. After that, I'll then get on to doing the motor wires and soldering them to the ESC. So let's just jump straight into it, shall we? Okay, so I've got the ESC pads soldered up, and I've also got the ends of the wires soldered up. The idea with this is to put enough heat through them that we get a good solder joint. I'm using my soldering iron soldering station at 375 degrees Celsius, and I like to put a fair bit of solder on the wires before I attach them to the board, as sometimes, you know, battery ejections can cause a fair bit of force hanging off this. I also plan to put maybe a zip tie or something around this battery strap battery management cable that I've made as well. So in the next step, I'll solder this all together. So I've got the XT60 battery cables mounted exactly where I wanted them, and I've tidied up the soldering a little bit. I'm quite happy with those joints. They're very strong and they fit through this cable guide very well. So the next step I'm going to do is to prepare the low ESR capacitor, and I'm going to have it sit horizontally in the frame across the camera cage, just like so. And then I'm going to cable tie it down to the frame plate. To do that, I'm actually going to extend the capacitor with some of these wires. I'm going to have it sort of in a right angle configuration like so. And then I'm going to run these cables over top of the ESC and solder them in line with the XT60 lead. And then this cable here will bridge between the ESC and the flight controller. This one's from iFlight. So I've attached the 470 microfarad low ESR capacitor to the frame and attached it to the ESC, as you can see here. And I've got the wires running so that the flight controller can simply slip over the top, and then the wires will just run out like you can see there. So the next step, I'm going to prepare the motor wires, get all the pads tinned up and ready to go, and I'll probably throw in a time lapse of that right now. So we're at the point now where I'm getting ready to put some of the 3D printed components on and Loctite the motors to the frame. As you can see, I've added some pieces of heat shrink here to cover the motor wires underneath, and I've also made some more 3D printed parts underneath here to house the wires. I'll talk about them later, but for now I'll do a little time lapse of Loctiting the motors down. So the motors are now attached to the arms with Loctite, and this is what the frame looks like from the top and from the bottom. Bit of a bird's nest at the moment, but I've 3D printed these little adapters here so that the wires can route to the underside of the arms through this piece of heat shrink and then up over the lock nut, and then that will allow them to be level with the ESC. So I'm hoping that will tidy things up a little bit. So the next step will be to trim these wires to length. I'll tin them and then I will solder them to the ESC, and then we can get started on the flight controller. So I've gone ahead and I've attached the TX white, RX yellow, 5 volt and ground wires to the XF Nano Crossfire receiver. And I've twisted the wires up, and now I'm going to prepare the other ends to be soldered to the flight controller. When that's done, I will attach the Immortal T antenna and then I will cover the whole unit in this piece of clear heat shrink, and then after that I will slip it into this 3D printed piece that I've created here, and then I'll run a cable tie over top of that, and then eventually the Rush VTX Mini will go on top of this as well. So in the next clip I will attach this to the flight controller and we'll get it all mounted up. So it seems like my camera decided to stop filming halfway through the last clip, but I'll explain what I've done here. So I've just attached the receiver to the flight controller, and I've just twisted the wires to try and neaten that up, considering it's going to be mounted on the 20x20 stack area just here on the frame. So before I can attach the heat shrink, I need to put the Immortal T antenna on. And I'm just going to slip it into this 3D printed piece I printed. I made this one out of TPU, and all of my designs will be available in the description if anyone is interested in downloading them. So this will be mounted upside down, but what I'm thinking is that we'll clip this onto here. This connections just snap straight on. And then I'm actually going to heat shrink going back this way. I feel like that will work better for what I'm trying to do here. Okay, it's looking fantastic. Just coil this wire up a little bit more before we attach it. Now we will put it into this 3D printed part. And that is where the receiver is going to live, just underneath, mounted like that. We've got the Immortal T antenna going in underneath the 3D printed part. Obviously once the VTX is on top of that, it's going to hold it down quite nice. You can just round this cable underneath the XT60 lead like so. So it tucks away quite clean. And if we flip over, we'll notice that we've got this nice SMA mount ready to go here for the antenna to come up, just like so. Screw that guy in so you can see. And that's roughly what the back of it's going to look like. So the reason in the frame I've also got this cutout here, so I can easily get to the bind button straight down in there. So it's just right in there, easy to bind if anything happens to it or to set it up. So yeah, all right, onto the VTX. So as you can see here, I've attached the 4 wires to the Rush VTX Mini version. I've got black going to ground, red going to DC in, white is smart audio, and yellow is the video wire. I'll prepare the other end and I'll attach it to the flight controller now. So that's the video transmitter all wired up to the flight controller. As you can see, I've got the wires twisted, running like so. I've got the SMA connector on the back here, flipping that over. You can see you've got the bind button for the receiver at the top here, XT60 lead coming out here. Now, all we're waiting for is the camera, and that's on its way from China at the moment. I ended up going with the RunCam Phoenix. Looking forward to putting that in, so we'll fast forward through time and hopefully that will have arrived, and we'll continue on. So since the last clip, the RunCam Phoenix 2 has arrived. I went with the Joshua Bardwell edition, and it comes with this cable here, 6 wires coming out of it. We only need the video wire, the positive and the negative, so I'm going to remove the others. But in the meantime, I thought I would just show you as well. I've attached a zip tie underneath the VTX here, just to hold this MMXC to SMA connector down. So I'll remove these wires from this connector now. So I've removed the 3 wires from the plug now, and now I'm going to tin the pads on the flight controller and get the camera all mounted up. So I've now jumped over to Betaflight, where I've just finished setting up the new quad. Thought I'd go through the ports and configurations tab to show you guys what I've done. So under UART1, where the VTX is attached, I've added the peripheral of TBS Smart Audio here, so we can control the VTX channel without having to press the buttons on the actual quad. And down in UART2, I've enabled serial RX for the Crossfire receiver. And we don't have a GPS or anything else, so that's as simple as it has to be. So over in the configurations tab, when I flash the firmware to the iFlight stack, I've pretty much left majority of it the same. So D-Shot 600 was already there. The gyro and PID frequencies of 8 kHz were also there. I've switched off these 2 options here, but I've left on the accelerometer. That's just a preference of mine. Because the flight controller is inverted, mounted upside down, I've added this here. It says 180 roll degrees, meaning that the flight controller has been flipped in the config, so it will allow us to arm and fly without freaking out. And also I've added this maximum arm angle of 180 here. Coming down to the receiver section, I've added serial-based receiver here, then selected Crossfire. In doing that, I also enabled telemetry here, and I turned off air mode in the config because I like to put it on a switch, between angle mode and air mode. I've also enabled RX Lost and RX Set, so I can use the beepers that are built in on the ESC. And that's pretty well it for the config. My PID tune can be found in my previous setup video. I may even take some screenshots and put it in the description as well. One other thing is I did reverse some of the motor directions in the BL Heli Suite software because two of them, motors 1 and 4, were spinning in the wrong direction. So I might add a diagram of that as well. But yeah, now let's jump over to a field test and see how this thing goes in the air.